My name is Brenda Thorne. For a long time, I was just a footnote in the successful saga of my cousin, Chloe Sterling. If Chloe was a hurricane of charisma and spotlights, I was the gentle breeze no one noticed, blowing in a different direction. We grew up in a suburb, a landscape of perfect lawns and financial aspirations. But while Chloe dreamed of beautifying the world with her own name on luxury brands, I envisioned saving it, one tree at a time, one polluted river at a time. Our childhoods were a study in contrasts. Chloe, with her impeccable blonde hair and a smile that seemed rehearsed for commercials, was always the family favorite. I vividly remember one Christmas, when we were about 10. Chloe had won an essay contest on how to save the planet, a dissertation full of cliches about recycling and the beauty of flowers. The whole family applauded. My project, a mini composter I had built with wood scraps and dirt from the backyard, which smelled a little like organic waste, was quickly pushed away from the coffee table. "Brenda, dear, it's interesting," my great-aunt Grace said, forcing a smile, "but maybe not for indoors." The smell was the excuse, but the truth was it wasn't pretty or palatable enough. Chloe had a natural talent for self-promotion. By 15, she was already the president of the school's ecology club, organizing park cleanups that invariably turned into photo shoots for the local newspaper, with her always in front, smiling and holding an empty trash bag. I, on the other hand, spent my afternoons studying permaculture, visiting illegal landfills to understand the problem up close, or volunteering at small, underfunded wildlife sanctuaries. No one in my family ever asked me what I was doing. They assumed I was just wasting time with plants and dirt. At 18, while Chloe entered a prestigious university in New York to study marketing and public relations, I chose a state college with a strong environmental science program. My scholarship was full, the result of much effort, but it was met with an "oh, that's good you got something" instead of the resounding "congratulations" Chloe received for her NYU acceptance, even though her parents paid full tuition. The comparison was a constant, an open wound that never fully healed. The big turning point came when Chloe, in her early 20s, launched her own sustainable fashion brand. Sustainable chic was a marketing spectacle. Clothes made with recycled materials. Yes, but mass-produced in questionable factories with dubious work ethics and sold at exorbitant prices. She was the face of the new eco-glamour, appearing on magazine covers, speaking on panels about conscious consumption in five-star hotels. Every time I saw her with that calculated sparkle in her eyes, I felt a pang in my chest. It was the same old pain of being invisible, now amplified by the hypocrisy I saw in every stitch of her clothes. I remember a gala dinner where Chloe was honored as a young visionary of sustainability. I was there at the furthest table because my mother insisted I go. Chloe, on stage, lectured about the importance of saving the planet with style and briefly mentioned the complexity of the supply chain, a euphemism for the factories where I knew workers barely made $5 an hour. As she received a standing ovation from an audience wearing more gold and diamonds than a coal mine, I looked at the untouched food on my plate, feeling a knot in my throat. After dinner, I tried to congratulate her. She gave me a condescending look. "Brenda, dear, it's good to see you here. Still planting trees out there? Look, it's cute, but the real world needs bigger solutions. You know? Real impact, not a hobby." She laughed, a metallic sound that reverberated in the room. Then she turned to a group of journalists with an angelic smile and began posing for photos, completely forgetting I was there. That night, New York's humidity seemed to suffocate even more, and I felt an overwhelming weight on my chest, a mixture of anger and a deep sadness for my own irrelevance in their eyes. It was then that I quietly decided I would no longer seek anyone's approval. I would build my own kind of impact. After that dinner, the seed of something new and unshakable began to germinate within me. Chloe's dismissal, though painful, was a catalyst. I stopped trying to fit into a world that saw me as a stranger, a naive idealist. Instead of seeking glamour, I sought substance. Instead of spotlights, I sought the fertile silence where real work happens. I spent the following years immersed in grassroots sustainability projects. I stepped out of my comfort zone, my suburban Connecticut, and moved to rural California, to the Central Valley, a region of vast agricultural lands, many of them exhausted and impoverished. It was there that I found my purpose. I started with a small volunteer program, helping local farmers implement regenerative agriculture practices, techniques that restore soil health, conserve water, and increase biodiversity. At first, it was thankless work. Blazing sun, hands dirty with soil, often hearing skepticism from older farmers, accustomed to conventional methods. "Look, lady, these different little plants of yours aren't going to pay my bills," an old farmer once said with a cynical smile. But I persisted. I didn't talk about glamour or trends. I talked about results. I showed them how soil health directly impacted product quality and, consequently, profits. I took soil samples for analysis at university labs, showed graphs, explained the science behind regeneration. The first big project was the recovery of 50 acres of degraded land, which had been abandoned for years due to erosion and excessive pesticide use. I secured a small grant of $10,000 from a local environmental conservation foundation, enough to buy cover crop seeds, hire a few assistants, and install an efficient drip irrigation system. I spent months in the field, under a scorching sun, observing the land, learning from it. Sometimes, the mornings were cold and humid, with fog blanketing the fields like a gray blanket, and I felt the loneliness press in. But when I saw the first seeds sprout, when I felt the damp earth between my fingers and realized that life was returning, a genuine joy filled my chest. It was a kind of satisfaction that Chloe's empty applause could never provide. As the years passed, results began to show. Those 50 acres, once barren, were now a verdant oasis, producing high-quality organic crops. Neighboring farmers, who had once laughed at my madness, started seeking me out. "Brenda, what did you do there? My lands are dying, and yours, they're flourishing." The news spread silently through the agricultural community. I didn't seek out the media, didn't post about every small victory. My focus was the work, the real impact, the tangible change in people's lives and the health of the land. That's how Green Roots was born. I started with a small office in a renovated old barn, with a team of 3 passionate people. In 3 years, we had field teams in several California counties, working with over 200 farmers, helping them transition to regenerative agriculture. We weren't famous. We didn't appear in fashion magazines. But we were effective. Our impact reports showed a 30% reduction in water usage, a 25% increase in soil biodiversity, and a 15% growth in the income of participating farmers. Our numbers were solid, transparent, undeniable. My family, of course, continued to ignore me. My mother occasionally asked, "Brenda, are you still playing in the dirt? When are you going to get a real job, with a decent salary?" Chloe, meanwhile, was flying high. Sustainable chic had been valued at over $50 million. She had launched an eco-friendly makeup line and was invited to lecture at universities, charging $25,000 per appearance. The press called her the Green Queen of Business. To her, I was still Cousin Brenda who plays farmer. The contrast was stark, and for a while, it hurt. But every day that I saw a field flourish, or received a sincere thank you from a farmer whose life I had improved, the pain diminished, replaced by a deep sense of purpose. I didn't need their recognition. I needed my work to matter. And it did. 3 years before that day that would change everything, I was invited to a philanthropic event at a boutique hotel in Santa Monica. It was a gathering of small and medium donors and some nonprofit organizations working on environmental conservation. I almost didn't go. I was exhausted, covered in dirt, and my hair was tangled. Formal events still made me uncomfortable, but something compelled me. After a brief presentation on Green Root's success in restoring degraded land in the Central Valley, a woman approached me near the drink table. She seemed to emanate an aura of authority and discreet elegance. She wore an impeccable linen suit and had a pearl necklace that seemed to tell a story. Her gaze was penetrating but kind. "You've done remarkable work," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Your numbers on soil regeneration and water conservation are impressive. I see your impact goes far beyond spreadsheets." She introduced herself as Eleanor Vance. No foundation last name, no title. Just Eleanor. We talked for about 20 minutes about the challenges of regenerative agriculture. I found myself at ease in the conversation, something rare at events like that. She didn't ask what family I came from. She listened. In the end, she gently touched my elbow and said, "I wish more people in our circle understood the depth of the work you're doing." And then she said goodbye. I didn't think much about it afterward. I didn't know who she really was, or the extent of her influence. I only remembered the feeling of being truly seen, of having my work valued by someone who seemed to understand the essence of what we did, without prejudice, without Chloe's shadow hanging over me. I returned to my work in the field, focused, detached, at peace. This lasted until 3 weeks ago, when I received an invitation, forwarded by one of our new board partners, to the Vance Philanthropies annual sustainability gala. The name Vance wasn't familiar to me at the time, but my partner insisted, saying it would be a unique opportunity. I arrived without high expectations. What I didn't know, what no one had told me, was that Chloe had married one of the heirs to the Vance fortune. And the moment I stepped into that ballroom, I was no longer the ignored cousin they had left out of so many events. I was the woman Eleanor Vance had once met, and whom she never forgot. The Vance Philanthropies Gala was held in the Grand Central Hall in Los Angeles, a place that whispered money and power in every marble column, in every crystal chandelier. There was nothing loud or vulgar. Everything was restrained opulence. I had been in similar rooms before, but never as Brenda Thorne, the founder of the Green Roots Initiative. That night was different. I arrived early enough to avoid the initial buzz. My dress was dark green, flowing with a simple cut made for movement. My heels weren't dizzying. I hadn't come to dazzle. I had come to be undeniable. Inside, everything glittered. Waiters moved with the precision of a ballet. A string quartet played softly from behind a curtain of white orchids. There was a tension, an attentiveness in the air. People there truly noticed each other. And then she saw me. Chloe was near a champagne tower, in a golden silk dress that caught the light like a sharp knife. Her laughter, loud and artificial, had that forced edge I knew so well. She turned slightly, scanning the room, and froze when her eyes met mine. An instant passed. Then, as if on cue, she rolled her eyes. Not subtly, not privately. She did it as a performance, one she had been rehearsing since we were children. That act of, "Oh, not her again." I saw her nudge the woman next to her and whisper something. Both turned to look, though the friend had the decency to look a little embarrassed. I didn't avert my gaze. I gave a small smile. Not warm, not confrontational, just present, like someone who didn't need to shrink herself to fit in. I walked further inside, past the guests, offering brief nods to those I recognized. The further I went, the more I noticed people reading my name tag. Some squinted, others smiled faintly. A man murmured something to his wife, who leaned in for a better look. My name, Brenda Thorne, wasn't a famous family name, but in the right circles, in the circles that truly mattered, it meant something. And this was undeniably one of those circles. I reached the refreshment table and had just picked up a glass of water when I heard, "Brenda Thorne." I turned slowly. Eleanor Vance. She looked exactly the same, only even more imposing. She looked at me and then froze. Her glass didn't move. Her expression didn't change at first, but her eyes widened slightly and then narrowed with something that looked like admiration and a touch of surprise. "It's her," she said, low and deliberately, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Heads turned. The phrase spread. Guests paused their conversations, trying to understand what was happening. "It's her," Eleanor said again, this time almost smiling, a sparkle in her eyes. Chloe was behind her. She had heard. She knew exactly what was coming, and there was no stopping it. "You're the founder of Green Roots?" Eleanor asked, her tone loud enough to be heard by those closest. "The regenerative agriculture projects, the soil recovery in the Central Valley, the water savings of over 30%? Are you that Brenda Thorne?" "I am," I said simply. Her smile deepened. "I never forgot your presentation in Santa Monica. I told my son afterward, that woman is truly changing things quietly." I wished more people were paying attention. I was stunned, a mix of surprise and gratitude washing over me. "Your teams work in counties where Vance Philanthropies has investments," she continued. "Our consultants were impressed. Farmers who used to lose their crops are now thriving. My grandson, who is studying agronomy, told me about your articles. He said you're revolutionizing agriculture." "I had no idea it had reached your family," I said. "It has," she replied. "And now I'm thrilled to see you again. I'd love to introduce you to some people tonight, if you're willing. We have some of the country's biggest sustainability investors here." "I would be honored." Her hand briefly touched my arm as she gestured me forward. We began to move towards the main hall. The buzz behind us spread like wildfire. As we passed the champagne tower, I saw Chloe again frozen. Her smile, once too bright, was cracking. One of her friends, who had previously seemed to flatter her, leaned in and asked a question I didn't hear, but I saw the panic flash in Chloe's eyes as she answered very quickly, almost stammering. "A man near us, a tech magnate, asked Eleanor, 'Wait, is that Brenda Thorne of Green Roots?'" Eleanor answered for me, "It is." A whispered coronation, a silent reckoning, and for the first time in years, I stood still in a room full of strangers and felt seen for who I truly was. Not as Chloe's cousin, not as the country girl, not as the odd one they left out of family photos for being too strange. Just me, Brenda Thorne. Chloe followed us with her eyes, but never with her feet. I caught glimpses of her throughout the night, hovering near small groups of people, trying to regain the composure she once commanded. But something had changed. Her laughter was too forced, her smiles too delayed, and the people she tried to impress now looked past her, their eyes directed at me. I didn't need to brag. I didn't need to explain. The silence did all the work. Several guests came to introduce themselves. Cordial, curious, respectful. They mentioned projects I had almost forgotten. Some asked how I started Green Roots. Others asked how they could help. No one asked if I was Chloe's cousin. That alone was a kind of freedom I had never tasted before. For the first time, I wasn't defined by someone else's shadow. At one point, I excused myself from the group of board members Eleanor had introduced me to and headed towards the exit corridor. I didn't intend to stay long. I had come, made my presence felt, and watched the foundation of Chloe's social myth crumble in real time. That was enough. Chloe found me. "You wanted attention, Brenda," she said. "I never wanted attention. What I long for is real impact," I replied. "You weren't like this before," she countered. "That's funny because I think I always was. You just never bothered to see. You were too busy with your own spotlight to notice anything that didn't shine as brightly as you did." Her eyes, previously full of anger, now seemed to carry a hint of vulnerability. Do you know what it's been like trying to explain who you are to people here in my world? You don't fit in. You don't have the profile. You make people uncomfortable with your inconvenient truths about what's genuinely sustainable. That problem isn't mine, Chloe, I said calmly. It's yours. And it's for the people who care more about image than impact. Her lips tightened into a thin, pale line. You could have stayed in your corner, but instead, you had to show up and embarrass me. No, I said. What embarrassed you was the truth. And it's not new. It's just louder now. People are finally paying attention to substance, not just sparkle. We stood in silence. She took a step forward, almost pleading. I don't care how many people think you're impressive now. You're still the same girl who sat alone at lunch, the weird kid, the one no one wanted around. I met her gaze, a look of pity mixed with a quietness she could never understand. And yet here I am, invited, welcomed, respected, without pretending to be who I'm not, without selling illusions. That hit her. I could see it. Chloe's mouth opened, then closed. Her shoulders dropped slightly. She looked away first. I walked past her, not with anger, but with clarity and a serenity that surprised me. I didn't come here to ruin your night, Chloe. I didn't even come for you. I came because my work matters. And apparently, some people in your world actually recognize that, even if you don't want to see it. I told them you were insignificant, she said, her voice now lower, almost a lament. You shouldn't have shown up like this. You shouldn't have won. I know, I said. But the truth doesn't need permission to surface. With that, I turned and walked away. She didn't call after me. As I approached the main lobby, Eleanor Vance appeared again. When she saw me, her face lit up. Leaving, she asked gently. I think I've done what I came to do. I think so too, she said with a knowing smile. Then she added, I hope we'll talk more soon, Brenda. There's room at the table for women like you, who make a real difference without fanfare. She squeezed my hand with the kind of silent strength that needs no applause to be felt. It was a squeeze that said, I see you. Outside, the night air was fresh, not biting, but purifying. My car pulled up, and as I got in, I didn't look back. That chapter, whatever it was, had written its final line. The drive home was silent. No music, no messages, no mental replays. Just the low hum of the tires on the asphalt and a kind of quietness I hadn't felt in years. I sat on my couch, hands clasped in my lap, letting the silence wrap around me like a soft blanket. What happened tonight wasn't about Chloe. It was about me. For much of my life, I had moved through spaces as if asking permission to exist. I spent years waiting for someone to finally turn and say, hey, we see you now. But tonight, when Eleanor recognized me, something within me shifted. Not because she said it, but because I already knew it was true. The moment wasn't about being discovered. It was about being confirmed. And, strangely, that made all the difference. I used to imagine what it would be like to be in a room where my name meant something. Not because of who I was related to, but because of what I built. Now I know. Recognition is good, but it's not purpose. And what I built, slowly, quietly, away from the media noise and appearances, is purpose. I didn't walk into that ballroom seeking redemption. I walked in already complete. So when Eleanor recognized me amidst so many people, the room might have heard and seen me for the first time. But I've been showing it to myself and to the world through my actions for years. Thank you for listening to Brenda's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share to support us in bringing more inspiring stories, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new releases. See you in the next video.